Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. Yes, it is Thursday morning. It is 10 a.m. and it is time for the Her Money and Investing Show with yours truly, Jessica Perrone. So I am so excited because I announced my fall classes. Yes, starting the second week of September, I'm giving time for Labor Day. I am giving time for school to start. And then, ladies, yes, hopefully you are thinking about how you can start learning the language of money and investing. So, all the classes are posted on my website at herfiniq.com. And I've even added a journey page so you can see where your journey can flow and ebb with yours truly, Jessica Perrone. And I thought it would be kind of fun if I started telling you a little bit about why and how I got into this whole thing. I don't think I've really given you the story. I'm thinking back and I'm like, oh, did I tell my story? Have I told it recently? Do you guys know my story? Well, I would love to tell you my story. So I started Her Financial IQ about a year and a half ago. And I had to do some start and stops. There were some personal things that went through, but what led up to that experience was I left finance about 4 years ago. And I left finance to try to make things work for my now ex-husband and I. Yes, I did try to do that. And I thought that by leaving the workforce, leaving finance, being a stay-at-home mom, I would be able to help make things work, help cultivate that relationship. Didn't work out, no. And I was really lonely. I was so lonely. I went from being on Wall Street, being on trading desks, and having all this market, being able to have the pulse of the markets and have really smart people to talk to being a stay-at-home mom. Now, nothing wrong with being a stay-at-home mom, but I felt lost. I felt so lost. And so I was trading on my own, and I'm like, you know what? I really wish I had a community of female traders to talk about the markets with. And so I said, okay, I'm going to start a book club for women traders. And guess what happened? Crickets. I'm like, oh, it's so hard to find women traders around. I'm like, okay, strike the idea. It's not going to happen. I'm like, you know what? Maybe there's a lot of stay-at-home moms in my community. Maybe I will teach them how to trade. I was like, that sounds like a really great idea. Maybe, there's a lot of smart women out there. Maybe they're feeling lost like I am. And so I went to the soccer fields and I was like, I'm going to teach women how to trade. And you would not believe the anxiety that perkled up. I just made up a word, perkled. That you could see the rosacea could come up the necks and turn red. Oh, I can't do that. It's so, oh my goodness, that's so scary. I don't have a finance background. I can't do that. And I was like, wow, there's a lot of fear about talking about investing and trading. I'm like, this is crazy. I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm back to the drawing board. I'm like, strike that idea of teaching women how to trade. And then I realized, I was like, what I really need to do is just teach women about the basics of investing and how to put their monies to work and the different ways to put their monies to work. And whether that is teaching them how to talk to a financial advisor, whether it's about teaching them the pros and cons of the different types of ways they can put their money to work, whether it's teaching them what a stock is or what a bond is, or all those different instruments, whether I'm talking about risk, whether I'm talking about how the stock market works. What I realized was I needed to create a program that taught all these concepts in an approachable manner. And thus Her Financial IQ was born and my curriculum was born. And if you can see, you will see that now in my journey, in the classes that I have created for you ladies and teens, you go through a progression. And the progression actually starts with personal finance, some key personal finance items, thus getting your financial ducks in a row. Because what I found with my before investing class, which was originally the first journey class, was that a lot of women were coming to this class, to this learning, to learn how to invest, to get rid of credit card debt. And unfortunately, that's not how it works. It's like going to Vegas to try to pay off your credit card debt. No, that's not how you work. So what I realized is that I wanted to create a starter class of the financial ducks you need to get in a row before you even start investing. So that's the current journey. That's the journey that you will undertake if you choose to take this mission and this journey with yours truly, Jessica Perrone. The journey starts with before investing. In that class, you will learn about getting your financial ducks in a row. You'll learn about life stages, emergency funds, places to put those emergency funds. You'll learn about the various types of risk out there. You'll learn about credit card debt. You'll learn about credit scores, and you'll also learn about how to cultivate those credit scores as well. And within all of those lessons, I also trickle in different pieces of investing wisdom as well as to why we want to get these financial ducks in a row. So after before investing, we go into investing for beginners. And in investing for beginners, we talk about, what will happen the first time you go to a financial advisor, what that questionnaire means when you sign up for a robo-advisor or a financial advisor, the pros and cons of doing self-directed investments versus having someone manage it for you. And so these are all the aspects that is very important to know when you're thinking about how you're going to put your monies to work. So that is your investing for beginners class, which then runs into stocks for beginners. And in stocks for beginners, we learn about what stocks are. And I teach something that I created called the identifying investment method. And you learn how to use the identifying investment worksheet. Now, what's really interesting is that the identifying investment method is something I use every day. And it is something that I'm teaching in this show as well. I'm showing you the applications for the identifying investment method, because one of the biggest challenges for me when I was learning how to invest and how to trade was what to invest in. And I did. I went through a journey of all sorts of fancy screeners, talking to some of the most, the smartest guys on the street. Yes. And I realized that in my journey, what I really wanted to do was invest in companies that I believe in. And in my journey, I also learned how important it is to diversify that list as well. Because what I learned in my journey was that the markets move in very interesting ways. So, for example, if you as a woman are interested in, shopping and clothes and whatnot, well, if you're looking at a sector or if you're looking at an industry group, sometimes that sector and industry group will move in tandem with other stocks and sectors. And these are all aspects that I will teach through the journey. And I especially go in depth in the identifying investments in the sectors section of my classes. That's way, way down in the journey. But we do go into that. And we go into that on a weekly basis here in her money and investing chat. Now, why I bring this up, especially this identifying investment method, is because you can identify investments in your everyday life. And it's funny because I've been talking to some guys recently who have actually brought up that their wives have brought up companies to them that they wanted to invest in, that their wives have come to them and said, oh, there's this new company, there's this new store, it's packed, I want to invest in it. And the husbands are like, yeah, honey, yeah. And then they admitted to me, yes, they came clean and admitted to me that they wish that they would have invested in that company because their wives were right. And as super consumers, ladies, yes, and you can identify these trends ahead of time. You just have to learn how to go through the process. Okay, so that's what the identifying investment worksheet does, which is part of Stocks for Beginners. You'll learn the whole process, the methodology behind the identifying investment method. Yes, and it's pretty fun. Now, I do talk about this in a game format with my teens for the teen class, and I call it I Spy Investments. And you, as moms, can play this with your kids and teens as well. And there's no better place to do it than on road trips. Yes, I love road trips. I love road trips, and I love being able to just look around me, look in the environment, and start like kind of seeing and feeling trends. And you as moms can play this game too, because what I find is as moms, right? And as women, there are certain sectors that we on a daily basis see companies in. So those are the communication sector, that is the consumer sectors, and it is also the technology sector. So for example, those three sectors are, primarily where women, when they're starting to put together the identifying investment sheet, those are the three sectors that they typically see and identify companies with. But with road trips, it's very easy to start diversifying your identifying investment sheet because you start seeing companies outside your everyday life. And this actually happened to me and my daughters on our last road trip. And this is sort of the type of conversations you can have with your teens and kids too. This conversation I had with my teens. So we're driving along, right? We're going down to Chincoteague, Virginia. It is one of my happy places. If you know anything about me, you know that I love horses. I love horses. I love ponies. And I will do anything to sort of integrate some sort of horsey aspect into my vacations. So on the way down to Chincoteague, we took some of the back roads because the main highways were really super congested. Thanks, Google. Yes, Google rerouted me onto some really beautiful country roads. And when we were on these country roads, I started talking aloud to my kids. I started saying to them, I'm like, wow, look how far apart these houses are. And then I said, I wonder how long it takes for orders to be delivered here. Because if you think about it, if you live in an urban center, right, your packages can get to you really quickly because there's a lot of demand and the delivery trucks are filled and they come quite frequently. But if you think about rural communities where the houses are so far away and there aren't so many clusters, right? Well, UPS and FedEx, they want to fill up the truck, right, before they deliver the packages. Unless, of course, it is like FedEx, the overnight. But again, someone's paying, out the wazoo to get that package there. So I started, talking about this aloud to them. I'm like, I wonder how Amazon does in these rural communities. And even my daughters chimed in and they were like, yeah, I wonder what DoorDash looks like around here. Because DoorDash, where we are in a suburb where there's a lot of restaurants, right? A lot of drivers. So it's very convenient to get those deliveries to you. But in the rural communities where there aren't so many restaurants, where there aren't so many drivers, right? How efficient is that model? So I started thinking about these two different models, one for cities and one for suburbs. And what was also really interesting that we recognized as we were driving along was that there were these stores I had never really noticed before, right? Because I have my Walmarts, I have my Targets, I have, on right down the road from me, 20 minutes, easy to get there. And I also have Amazon, right? But if you're in the rural communities and Amazon doesn't get to you, and the Targets and the Walmarts need a lot of traffic, well, guess what that opens up the door for? For the likes of Dollar General and Dollar Tree. And I was surprised at how many of them we saw. And again, what's interesting is that I never really considered these companies as potential investments for myself because I never saw them in my everyday life. But because I went on this road trip and because I saw them, it opened up my eyes. And guess what? Guess what happened? My daughters, when we were in Chincoteague, there's actually a Dollar General right there. And guess what they said to me? They're like, Mom, this place is great. Yeah, they did. They went in. They're like, Mom, this place is awesome. And that is from, the teens' mouths as well. So it started making me think about it. So I did add them to my identifying investment list. I am going to be doing my research on it, but that's sort of how the process works and how you can also have your team chime in on this process as well. Now, I also started thinking about drones and delivery systems and how DoorDash could possibly partner with Dollar General to have things delivered. And then I was thinking about drones for Amazon. And then I was thinking, well, the drones have to have the power to go the distance. Yeah, that is all the ways that my brain goes down, all of these rabbit holes when I start thinking. And that is all just from a road trip. Oh, another thing I do is I count trucks. You're like, what? You do what? Yes, I count trucks. I count like Walmart versus Amazon. I count, Target versus, I'm like on my hands, in my hand. I'll be like 1 Walmart, 2 Amazon, 3, like 2 Old Dominion. Like, no joke. I count trucks. I do. Yeah. That's how I amuse myself on road trips. How do you amuse yourself on road trips? How about playing the I Spy Investments game with your kids on the road and try to find those trends? Yes. And if you find a trend that you're really interested in, add it to your identifying investment worksheet and investigate it. See, it might be an investment that you'll want to invest in. A company you want to invest in. Okay, so moving on here a little bit more. So speaking of road trips and speaking of cars, the other conversation I hear going on is how hard it is to buy a car. Anyone else car shopping out there? Does anyone else have a really hard time buying a car? So I have to admit, I have a minivan. Yes, I drive a minivan. And it is super functional, but it's not really like my kids. They're like, oh no, Mom, wrong vibe. You're giving the wrong vibe. And they are so embarrassed to drive with me in my minivan. Yeah. Yours truly, minivan. But yesterday I was able to put a bike in it. I was able to, everything. It's the utility behind it is amazing. It is amazing. And so like even thinking about buying a new car, like I'm like going through the process in my head of all the things I want. It's so hard. It is hard. And I'm having a really hard time like even thinking about what I'd want to trade up to. And I do not mind waiting. There's nothing wrong. But when I hear stories from you guys about how hard it is to even buy a car, I'm like, I'm going to wait. I think I'm going to wait a little bit. And guess what? These conversations that I'm having with all of you, right? And even the car buying one can be reflected in news items as well. So what's interesting is that you guys are not going crazy. Yes, it is facts. it is hard to buy a car. And here's some headlines out that support that. So the first headline that I'm sourcing here is from Trade the News. It's from August 2nd. It's on Honda Motor, and that ticker is HMC. And so they were reporting their July US auto sales as down 47.4% year over year. Yes, almost 50% down year over year. And they were sourcing that July sales continue to reflect strong demand. So there is strong demand out there, but there is limited inventory, right? So they're having a hard time producing cars, right? But the demand is there. The demand is there. And another headline that I saw on CNBC today was for Toyota Motors. That ticker is TM, and they had their earnings. So they were reporting that the automaker's shares fell 3.5% in pre-market action after it reported a 42% drop in profit from a year ago for its latest quarter. A 42% drop in profits. Ouch. Yeah. Yes. Toyota was impacted by supply chain issues, rising costs, which prevented it from producing as many cars as it had intended. So when there's limited supply and a lot of demand, guess what? Car prices go up. So as a consumer, yes, you do not have as much negotiating power right now. So just maybe wait for those supply chain issues to ease up a little bit. I know I am for sure. Now, earnings season, talking about like earnings season and also talking about back to school. We were talking about back to school last week. And what's interesting is that earnings is reporting items that have happened, right? So in the past. So for example, when we are looking to see back to school sales trends for Target or Walmart, we will not see those reflected in earnings until November. Does that make sense? So for example, if you want to see Christmas earnings, you would have to wait until next year to see those results. Does that make sense? Now, there are ways that companies kind of give investors an idea. So there's like economic data, like same store sales. You can look at that. We just saw an example from Honda, who reports their US auto sales on a monthly basis. So there are indicators that will give you sort of an idea of what's going on in that company or that industry group. But when it comes to an earnings release, they are reporting on the quarter that already happened. Okay. So this is something to think about, because what you are feeling can be confirmed in these earnings reports. And that's why it can be really super helpful as an investor to pay attention to all these earnings, because you will see tea leaves, not only for what may come up, but also confirmation of what your gut has been telling you. So this is another example of what we were talking about last week with back to school trends. One of the back to school trends that we were talking about when we were thinking about what we are spending our monies on is less electronics, right? We bought a lot of electronics during COVID. They are going back to school. Schools are supplying the laptops. Really, all they need is their earbuds and their phones. Everything else is provided for them. Or you have the setups already at home, already created, so you don't need to buy new ones, right? That's the trend that you and I as moms are sort of feeling. Or even you young professionals that have had those setups created at home, like me. I have already had this setup, created from COVID. So am I going to be buying new monitors? Probably not. Am I going to be buying a new PC? Probably not. Let me think of anything else. Oh, I might upgrade my system. I might get a better mic. I might get a better camera. But for the most part, my system here is set. Oh, another thing I might buy is more cloud storage. That might be something else that I would upgrade. But the actual hardware and the equipment is not necessarily something that I'd be investing in. And it's interesting because, again, we are getting confirmation of those feelings from this headline I'm about to read to you now. And that's from 8-2. Again, Trade the News was reporting on this. The ticker is DD for DuPont. And the headline out of there is that they are monitoring continuing uncertainties in global supply chains and monitoring softness in smartphone, PCs, and tablets. Yes, yes. So that feeling that we have, right, from being the consumers for the families, for items for back to school, we already knew that. We were already feeling that in our everyday purchases. Again, so earnings can help confirm those feelings that you are having when you're adding things to your identifying investment sheets. Yeah, isn't it neat how this all comes together? Yeah, I love, love, love this method that I created. And I'm so excited to teach it to you guys. I just, the way that it comes together and the way it explains things just makes sense. Actually, it makes dollars. No, it just makes sense. Okay, so moving on, and also thinking about the industry rotation in your everyday lives, the rotation of the spending of your dollars. So for this past summer, a lot of us have been traveling. Yeah, how many of you guys have been traveling? We've all been traveling a lot, right? But as school is starting, and we're like, ooh, we traveled a lot, and Thanksgiving's around the corner, school's back, Christmas is back. We're like, ooh, maybe we should dial back on our travel spending, right? Who else is feeling that way? I know I'm feeling that way. I know that I have my last little mini getaway with the kids the second week of August. And then I said, you know what? I think I'm going to put a squash on all travel after that for the kids. And we're just going to nest a little bit because we have Christmas and we have costs coming up, and we're going to focus on that. So that's what me as mom am thinking when I'm budgeting, where my monies are going to go. So what's also interesting is that on Tuesday, on August 8th, CNBC was covering this app. It's called Hopper. And Hopper has a travel study. It has a quarterly travel study. And this travel study says that domestic airfares booked now for fall travel are 25% cheaper than they were in spring. It goes like this. The average fare could drop as low as $289 round trip before rebounding in October and November. And it says good deals can be had for most major US air hubs if booked by early September. Yes. So the price of flying is coming down. And that makes sense, right? It makes sense. And it just gives confirmation to that feeling I have, that feeling of where my monies are going as the spending, as the super consumer in my household. Yeah, right. So that is how I look at my everyday life. That is how I'm investigating investments in my everyday life. And I hope that it has intrigued you. I do. And I hope that you will join me in my fall classes as well. So with that said, I do want to end with my quote of the day. And my quote of the day is from Walt Disney. All your dreams can come true. All your dreams can come true if you have the courage to pursue them. Let me repeat them. This is out of Walt Disney. All your dreams can come through if you have the courage to pursue them. And that is my wish for you, to dream of how big you can grow your wealth and have the courage to pursue that dream and the journey to achieve your financial goals, whatever they are. I am amazed at this community we are building of women committed to financial health, growth, and freedom. You may be overwhelmed about getting your financial ducks in a row, and you may be apprehensive about learning the language of investing. But it is baby steps, and I know you can do it. You can do it, and you're doing it just by being here today. And should you wish to take your money and investing journey outside the show, check out my fall class schedule. Sign up for my mailing list to be notified of upcoming interviews, panels, workshops, and announcements. I'm Jessica Perrone, founder of Her Financial IQ. You have been watching Her Money and Investing Show. May the markets be in your favor. Thank you so much for watching. Please join me next week, every Thursday, 10 a.m. I'll see you. Bye now.